Then you came all the way down from Poland
Yes.
just to please speak about how is Jews now in Poland and in Europe
In Europe.
after some years after Holocaust, how is anti-Semitism, how is really with this about everything with the Muslim, how is it now in Europe and what it can be for all the world that.
It's very challenging. Yes, I came all the way down from. I was born in Bulgaria, but I came from Poland. I live in Poland, and it's yes. I'm bringing lots of news about the ongoing situation in the European Jewish communities, and the news are not very good. Communities are dealing with all kind of pressure, political pressure, social pressure. And all the signs that we're seeing across Europe show without any doubt that European Jewish communities are now witnessing an increase of anti-Semitism pretty much all over the continent.
Is there a risk with this anti-Semitism about some, I don't know, pogroms, attacks to Jews? We just see
Yeah.
in Toulouse, in Bulgaria, but it looks like it was some crazy guy. It's like a crazy guy, or it's something that we
depends.
can be.
Right. It really depends on the country because we see like in countries like France, the danger is really. I think that there is a physical danger. Yes, people are really afraid, and you can wear a kippah on the street, and you turn a wrong, you take a wrong turn, and you can end up in a bad neighborhood, and something bad can happen. The same in Sweden, in the city of Malmö. It's we're seeing attacks on the synagogue, on the Jewish kindergarten, so it really gets physical. In some countries, we see only political statements for now. People in the parliament, nationalistic, far-right parties who are successful in the elections and go to the parliament, and from the parliament they're saying very nasty things about all the minorities that live in certain countries. So this is not physical yet, but yeah, I mean there is always chance for this to turn into a physical danger for all minorities, not only Jewish minorities
Is
in
this
certain countries.
against Jews, against Israel, or it's both, or people knows a difference between them?
You see, that's a good question. Like in general, it's both. But even if, like in Sweden, which is a very left-wing country, you say people who are saying very terrible things about Israel or against Israel, but at the end of the day, this negative attitude towards Israel turns always also toward Jews in the country because Jews are uh, seen as supporters of Israel, some kind of a somewhat of a representatives of Israel. So all this criticism towards Israel is really addressed towards Jewish communities, and we hear people who say, "Oh, we have nothing against Jews," but at the end of the day, we feel that people don't really make that distinction, and it's the Jewish community in a certain country, in a given country, that pays the price.
Do you think this risk that it's in Europe can be an advance to United States, to Mexico, to South America, or it's just something that happens in France or in Poland or in some countries because of.
Yeah, the issue is very complex, and it just happens that in Europe we're dealing with all these things all together at the same time, because, for example, in countries like Greece, the reason uh, for the rise of neo-Nazi party, the far right, is economical because Europe has been struggling with its economy. It's been having lots of economical problems. So in times like this, parties are turning against their minorities. So we see there is economic reasons for that, but also there is a big Muslim communities across Europe in countries like Sweden or Netherlands who have different agenda against the Jews. So we see that it's not one reason because of which we're dealing with these issues, but unfortunately for Europe, it's just the place where all these factors, all these reasons they just meet in Europe, and you don't see this in, I don't know, in Mexico for a whole different set of reasons.
Is there neo-Nazi parties in Europe? Because somebody said that Nazis are not more there. In Germany, it's forbidden in some way. Is there neo-Nazi parties around? It's neo-Nazis rising again in this war after what happened not so far away.
Unfortunately, the answer is yes. Even if we have parties who don't label themselves, none of these parties say that, oh, we are a neo-Nazi party. But from what they say, from the message they send, from the way they talk about immigrants, from the way they talk about Jewish community, other communities, it's very clear that they have a neo-Nazi inspiration and background, but they themselves don't speak about it. But yes, we have such parties, and they're in the parliament. People vote for them, and they're not small anymore. Over the last years, we've seen how much they've grown. They've grown in Greece. They've grown in Hungary. They're growing now in Ukraine, and all over the place. So unfortunately,
How is it in Poland, a country that has been designed like very anti-Semitic, where it was all the Holocaust in more parts, but now they are opening some politics. They just built a museum to remember the Holocaust. Is this true? There are still anti-Semitism. There is not. How is it? You live in Poland, so
yes,
how is it?
I live in Poland. I wasn't born in Poland, but I've been in Poland long enough in order to have a good observation of the situation. And I would say that really compared to other countries in Europe, Poland surprisingly over the last years has turned into a very safe place for the Jews to live. We've been seeing for 20 years now the revival, the growth of the local Jewish community. The last physical incident, the last physical attack that I can think of happened some maybe 7 years ago. And it's just enough to go to synagogue in Krakow or in Warsaw to see that you can just enter the synagogue. It's there is no police. There is just one security person, but no one is being screened. So I would say yes, it's becoming more and more safe. But which of course doesn't mean that the country is not dealing with its problems. And the Jewish community is also dealing with lots of challenges, but they come from a different source. In general, the president of the country, the government, they've been very supportive of the community in terms of that. We see the president, the prime minister coming, for example, to the synagogue to light a Hanukkah candle. And on every occasion they underline that they're very happy that there is a Polish Jewish community and they support it. But nevertheless, just this year, Poland banned kosher slaughter, for example. So, and it came from a whole different source, this attack on the Jewish tradition. But nevertheless, the fact is that Poland, a country that, yes, it's improving, is now one of the few countries in Europe which doesn't allow kosher slaughter. So we see kind of a contradiction. On one side, we
Doesn't
see
allow what?
kosher slaughter of the shechita. It was forbidden this year.
It's in Poland, no?
Yes, yes.
They told me that that is also against the Muslim because they don't want him. So with that,
Yes,
is that
in general in Europe this is the trend from what we see. But interestingly enough, in Poland, which is a country with a small Muslim community, served as an example where these two communities can come together in order to fight for their rights. So the two communities, the Muslim community and the Jewish communities, were in touch regarding this issue before it was forbidden by the parliament, and are still still remain in touch. And the issue now is in the Supreme Court. So chances are the community has seen support from the president, has seen support even from the Catholic Church, which says that Jews and Muslims should be allowed to enjoy their right of kosher to have kosher meat in their country. So we'll see what the Supreme Court would say, but as of today, the situation remains like this. It's forbidden.
Thank you for enlightening us about what's happening in Europe. What you think about what is going to happen next years in Europe with the Jewish community?
Yes.
What do you think it's the next?
I think that it's just a wave which comes and goes, and the communities across Europe, they are aware of this, and each community is trying to tackle these issues on its own or together on a pan-European level. I think that we're going to see some challenges times ahead. It's not going to be easy, but again, it's not the first time when Jewish communities are forced to deal with anti-Semitism, with hatred. So I think that at the end of the day, there will be there will be a vibrant Jewish life in Europe. It's just it's just not a very pleasant time right now, but it's gonna pass.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to LIMUD, and it's a pleasure. And we will be in touch, hearing about Poland, hearing about Judaism there, and everything in Europe.
My pleasure.